Pulstar spark plug tune-up for the channel's Harley-Davidson V-twin Sportster. There are quality spark plugs in the market. NGK, Denso, and Bosch were my motorcycle favorites for many years. In 2014, I discovered the Pulstar PlasmaCore spark plugs, and my view of spark plugs changed. An optimal flame front and complete combustion are always a challenge. For carbureted motorcycles like my Honda XR Enduro bikes or the channel's recently purchased 2001 Harley-Davidson XL1200S V-twin, I want more than just good spark. Our high desert Nevada base east of the Reno Lake Tahoe area is 4,200 feet elevation. Rides over the Sierra Passes reach from 8,000 to 10,000 feet. Jetting is always an issue on carbureted engines. Even with the altitude compensation inherent to the Keihin CV40 constant velocity carburetor, there is still the issue of richer fuel mixtures at higher elevations. This is especially true for the fixed Venturi carburetors found on my Honda XR Dirt Enduro bikes. The best popular brand Platinum and Iridium spark plugs might fire well with the right jetting, but when a rich mix occurs at higher altitudes, a jet change is often required to keep from fouling out these contemporary spark plugs. This does not happen when I run Pulstar spark plugs on the Honda XR 4-stroke Enduro bikes with Keihin slide carburetors. Pulstar spark plugs create a superior flame front and combustion process. In my experience, when jetted precisely for 4,000 feet elevation, I can ride these 4-stroke thumper bikes with OEM Honda Keihin round slide carburetors to over 8,000 feet with no signs of spark plug fouling or over-rich blubbering. While the tailpipe coatings go gray to light black, the engines still kickstart well and run smoothly. This can only be attributed to Pulstar spark plugs. If staying at these elevations for a lengthy period, a jet change would be necessary. So what makes the Pulstar PlasmaCore spark plugs unique? Let's look at the engineering and technology. A Pulstar spark plug can enhance combustion when other spark plugs are fouling. This caught my attention over a decade ago. Here is how a Pulstar spark plug makes quicker, more thorough combustion. The Pulse plug looks like a conventional spark plug but has an embedded high-Q capacitor that discharges at gap ionization. We're about to install the Pulstar PlasmaCore spark plug in the Honda XR650R engine. This engine has a fresh top-end rebuild and is precisely tuned. Watch how easily the XR650R starts with proper tuning and a Pulstar spark plug. We're about to test this Honda XR350R air-cooled single-cylinder 4-valve motorcycle. Our riding venue begins at 4,400 feet elevation and will go up into the surrounding mountain range and over 6,000 feet elevation. The carburetors on this motorcycle are fixed jet, which makes it even more challenging to adjust for altitude. And we'll see in this riding experience how well the Interpulse Pulstar PlasmaCore spark plug compensates for altitude. Another area where the Pulstar spark plugs excel is temperature range. By design, major brand spark plugs often have tight heat range parameters. Uniquely, a Pulstar spark plug can cover several heat ranges. Spark plug heat ranges typically match narrow engine design parameters, the anticipated loads and environmental conditions. Compression ratio and emissions tuning are key factors. The Pulstar plugs work well for our high desert environment with its diverse and wide-swinging ambient temperatures. This is usually a challenge, especially for air-cooled engines. Unlike its competitors' spark plugs, Pulstar spark plugs often span several heat ranges. Here is a comparison chart. Note that 2 heat range Pulstar plugs cover 8 ranges. Harley-Davidson air-cooled V-twin owners are big fans of the Pulstar spark plugs. Reports of improved performance and better fuel efficiency are common. For the 2001 Sportster XL1200S Sport V-twin with dual spark plugs at each cylinder, the ability to climb mountain passes without the need to rejet the Keihin CV40 carburetor before and after each encounter makes Pulstar spark plugs my choice. Again, these spark plugs are not a substitute for rejetting when riding for an extended period at a higher elevation. For brief periods of richer fuel mixtures, they work exceptionally well. Pulstar PlasmaCore spark plugs have been tested extensively on my dirt bikes. Remote travel like last fall's trip to Bodie, California on the Honda XR650R is just one example. On backcountry adventures, the XRs kickstart quickly. Throttle response remains crisp even on tight single track. Whether your motorcycle has carburetion or is equipped with EFI, Pulstar spark plugs can make a difference. On the Bodie trip, fuel mileage was surprisingly good. The approximately 3% loss of horsepower for each 1,000-foot elevation increase was hardly noticeable on either two-track or single-track. For a high-performance off-road motorcycle like the Honda XR650R, a Pulstar spark plug gets the job done. For my enduro or road bikes, I carry a spare spark plug and plug wrench with my onboard tools. This is a safety measure, especially for an off-road motorcycle in remote country. Regardless of a spark plug's reputation for dependability, I never find myself without a spare, fresh plug. At home, spark plugs get tightened to specification with a torque wrench. Use that same feel when tightening a plug in the field. I'm installing the Sportster's new Pulstar spark plugs with a fresh set of Drag Specialties 8.8mm performance spark leads. Premium parts deliver maximum performance, reliability, and predictable service. The twin-plug Buell Lightning cylinder heads offer an additional safety margin and security. Along with each spark plug change, I do a cylinder leak-down test. Number 2 cylinder on this pristine 2001 1200S Sportster is only 9%. I get a similarly low reading of just under 10% on the number 1 cylinder. Both cylinders are indicating that their piston ring and valve seal is excellent. With Buell twin-fire cylinder heads, this V-twin requires 4 spark plugs. Pulstar spark plugs come with clear tips and installation instructions. This plug design calls for adjustment with a wire gauge. With a capacitor in the core, you cannot put pressure on the center electrode. Adjustment bends are made at the side electrode only. Never use a spark plug gapping tool on a Pulstar spark plug. Pulstar does recommend anti-seize lubricant. I use Permatex Nickel anti-seize lubricant for its lubricating ability, its high heat resistance, and its compatibility with aluminum and stainless steel. Why stainless steel? Because a previous owner gifted me with a stripped spark plug thread set at the number 1 cylinder inner spark plug. I made that repair. Another tip I share with Pulstar is a use of a 3/8 rubber hose to install the spark plug. Here is a thin, even coating of anti-seize lubricant on the threads. Keep lubricant away from the electrode. Align the spark plug as carefully as possible. Make sure it's straight before turning or trying to start the first thread. Back off if you have to. Do not force the spark plug thread into the aluminum cylinder head threads. There was no resistance whatsoever as I thread the spark plug into the aluminum threads. The Permatex anti-seize lubricant helps as well. This is where the rubber hose is absolutely essential. This is a central spark plug on the Buell Lightning twin spark plug cylinder heads. I'm feeding the spark plug very gently toward the spark plug threads. This is the interior spark plug at number 1 cylinder that can be easily mishandled by an inexperienced tech or DIY installer. The plug is buried in a tight recess at the center of the cylinder head. Clearly, this is the most challenging on-the-engine spark plug thread repair I've done yet. This is the only way to safely start these threads. You have a sensitivity with the fuel hose that you would not have with a socket extension and a ratchet. I am really cautious here. The flexing and out of center is the hose, not the spark plug. The spark plug has been threading straight into the threads in the head. Here, I check to be certain that the spark plug has seated. Now, I can pull the rubber hose off the spark plug and use a socket and extension to do the final torque on the spark plug. The spark plug now seats in the permanent stainless steel thread insert. Now I carefully drop the Pulstar spark plug into the number 2 cylinder interior plug hole. This area and the number 1 cylinder area were both blown out with compressed air before removing the original spark plugs. fingertip pressure, and watching the spark plug alignment with the spark plug hole, and the first thread is caught without any resistance. Now I can turn the spark plug readily and thread the spark plug completely into the hole. Each of these interior plugs are now hand-seated and ready to be torqued. This is a Quinn spark plug socket set from Harbor Freight that makes that chore much easier, using the 5/8 swivel spark plug socket with a rubber insert and the extension that has a locking collar. It's very easy to drop this into the tight-fitting spark plug hole. The rubber insert in many spark plug sockets will not fit over the Pulstar plug and needs to be removed. The Quinn socket works well and the rubber insert can be left in place. Here I hold the torque wrench on center with the extension and the socket in place. This is reaching the final torque on the spark plug, and I will set that at 12 foot-pounds, the lower end of the scale, because the plug threads are lubricated. NGK uses a rule of thumb of 30% less torque applied when threads on spark plugs are lubricated. These 12mm spark plugs call for 11 to 18 foot-pounds of torque according to Harley-Davidson, so the 12 foot-pounds should be right with the lubricant on the threads. I want these spark plugs to stay in place, of course, but I don't want them seizing in the cylinder heads. The Permatex nickel anti-seize lubricant should be ideal for this combination of metals and heat. My Mac torque wrench was recently calibrated. It has 5 inch-pound increments and is set to 145 inch-pounds, as close to 144 as possible. I now set the torque on the other 3 spark plugs. Buell Lightning cylinder heads are not easy to find, nor are they inexpensive. They're running around $800 a pair in quality condition. I have heads that are in great shape with only 10,000 miles on them, and restoring these spark plug threads saved me a small fortune. I'm glad I do my own work. You can see that I'm particular about how I do it. I encourage other mechanics and DIY techs to do the same. This Drag Specialties custom spark lead set will replace the OEM wires perfectly. One thing to be considerate of here, though, is the thickness of the insulation. It may not fit in the clips. I rely on the factory workshop manual. This is a schematic diagram of the spark cable routing. You can follow this and you'd be ahead of the game. This coil unit fires all 4 spark plugs. Silicone grease on the boots will help prevent leaks of voltage and allow these spark cables to be removed in the future. Spark leads and cables follow the original equipment routing. This is the way the plugs and wires should look when completed. Everything is safely out of the way, the boots will seal out moisture, and the gas tank will fit on squarely. Thick insulated spark cables will complement the single-fire ignition. The XL1200S Sport was the first 1200 Evolution Sportster to use a single-fire ignition. This model also eliminated VOES and was the first to have a MAP sensor. This ignition tune complements the Buell Lightning cylinder heads 10-to-1 compression and hotter factory camshafts. This is what it means to be in tune.
While there are reputable major brand spark plugs, Pulstar stands out for its advanced technology. In nearly a dozen years of riding with these spark plugs, my enduro bikes have never missed a beat. I'll carry this tradition onto the highway with the 2001 Sportster XL1200S Sport. Pulstar plugs will bring out the best in the model that Harley-Davidson called its factory hot rod. Pulstar PlasmaCore spark plugs complement the Buell Lightning dual spark plug cylinder heads, the boosted 10-to-1 compression, and Harley-Davidson's hot factory camshafts.